And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum. Dr. Teitelbaum is a board-certified internist. He is an author of many books, amazingly best-selling books that have changed so many lives for the better, and also the author of groundbreaking research looking at the effective treatment of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Some of the books that he's authored are From Fatigue to Fantastic and Pain-Free 1, 2, 3, The Fatigue and Fibromyalgia Solution, and he also has an app. So if you're interested in apps for your smartphone called Cures A to Z. He's been featured in almost too many publications to mention, including radio and television. He's been on Good Morning America, CNN, The Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends. This man is the most amazing resource for people who are having difficulty with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And part of that may be because he experienced these problems himself when he was in medical school and had to drop out for a year to recover. Since that time, he has dedicated his life to finding effective treatments for pain and fatigue, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and other pain and fatigue-related problems. And so with great pleasure, I introduce to you Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum. Welcome, Dr. Teitelbaum.
Well, thank you, Lexi. And it's great to be with everybody today. So, again, whether you just have day-to-day fatigue or whether you have the worst energy crisis there is, which is fibromyalgia, we're going to teach you today how to optimize energy and how to make it kind of easy. So, even if you're feeling awful now, by the end of today, you're going to know what you need to know to feel great. Now, let's start with some of the numbers. About a third of adults in the United States have severe chronic fatigue, and virtually everybody would like more energy. I mean, most people are walking around kind of making it through the day instead of thriving. Of these, we have about 6 to 12 million Americans suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And you're seeing a thriving market out there for energy drinks, or more accurately put, energy loan shark drinks. These are things that are mostly caffeine and sugar, and they will give you a burst of energy, but like going to a loan shark, you'll end up paying double when it's time to make real energy. So let's go ahead and start with, why are we seeing a perfect storm for human energy crisis? You know, if you go back 500 years ago, people wanted more energy, but people weren't walking around tired all the time. So the question is, why are we seeing it now? So let's take a look at the diet. If you take a look at the studies, food processing eliminates virtually half of the vitamins and minerals present in the normal diet. And there wasn't that much of an excess to begin with. We have maybe 10% more than our bodies need. Half of the vitamins and minerals are gone. It used to be, if you go back 135 years ago, the average night's sleep in the United States was 9 hours a night. Average. How many of you out there are getting 9 hours of sleep a night? Those of you with fibromyalgia are lucky if you can even get 5 or 6. And the average American is getting 6 3/4 hours of sleep a night instead of the 9 that we had for most of human history. Why did that happen? Well, 2 simple words: light bulbs. And things have gone downhill from there. In addition, if you take a look at the TV, you're going to find that the media mantra for the last decade or two has been fear sells. When I was a kid, an advertising executive knew if they wanted to sell something, they'd put handsome men and beautiful women next to the product, and the old advertising mantra was sex sells. But now it's fear sells. How much can we make you afraid? Can we make you afraid of everything? And it gets crazy. You know, the news is no longer the news. It's kind of a dramatization for how we can keep people glued to the TV set, hating everybody and afraid of everything that's going on. And again, that's not reality. That's just what the media is feeding us. And the fear sells takes a toll on our energy and how we feel in general. Meanwhile, speed of life is increasing. It used to be if you wanted to send a letter from New York City to California, you know, the Pony Express, if the Pony Express rider survived the trip, you might get an answer back in 6 to 12 months. Now you hit send on the email, and 2 minutes later, ding, it's back in your box again. In addition, we're seeing a host of new infections that are coming in and weakened immune system. The current epidemic is now in autoimmune and immune illnesses. If you think about it, the main cause of death in the United States would be heart attacks and strokes. But if you go back 500 years ago, these are fairly uncommon. It was just recently, in the last century or so, that these skyrocketed to become the main epidemic. What we're seeing now is that the current epidemic is in immune illnesses such as autoimmune disease and things like CFS and fibromyalgia. A part of this, in addition to the things we just talked about, it's also coming from the 85,000 chemicals that our immune system has never seen before in human history that are being added to our diet and our environment. And because of this, our immune system really needs help. So even though there are a lot of challenges that we're facing, the good news is that I think that this is the best time ever in human history, and I think it's getting better and better. I think we're going to be amazed at how good things are going to be. It absolutely has its challenges. Every time in history has. But if you know the tools you need to survive and even thrive, given the current environment, you're going to have a life you love. So knowledge is power. And we're going to go ahead and teach you today just some basic 10 simple tips for how to thrive in modern day life. So let's start with the worst form of the human energy crisis, the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, when you have a combination of things that really drag people down and essentially take them out of the game. These have been called by many names: chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, ME, and I could go on for the rest of the hour just giving different names that this is called by. Basically, these illnesses are reflections of the worst case scenarios for the human energy crisis. Basically, the tip of the iceberg. People with these illnesses tend to be more sensitive than most. We tend to be more empathic. We tend to be more aware of what's going on, and that kind of scares people. In essence, we tend to be the canaries in the coal mine that warn the rest of the population of what's coming. It is the endpoint for excessive stress, whether that stress is from infections, hormonal problems, situational stress, having a boss from hell. There are literally hundreds of things that can stress people, and when you basically hit the buzzer in terms of maxing out on your stress, you blow a fuse, you trip a circuit breaker, and get CFS and fibromyalgia. And the way that you can tell is that you're not going to be able to sleep despite being exhausted. So if you're exhausted for months and you can't sleep, even if you're able to fall asleep, it's not restorative. And then if you also have widespread pain, then you've got fibromyalgia until proven otherwise. The combination of exhausted and can't sleep is what tells you that you've tripped a circuit breaker. Now, we talked about the tired, can't sleep, and pain. But for those of you with CFS and fibromyalgia, there are literally dozens of other symptoms. The insomnia reflects as both trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. It's as if there's a universal alarm clock that goes off at 2, 3 in the morning that wakes up everybody with this illness. You'll find that you tend to ache in different parts of your body, and it may move around a good bit, but it's not all in one spot. Sometimes it's arms, legs, back, headaches. Many of you have a lot of sensitivities to both foods, medications, and the environment. Your immune system is on overwhelm, trying to fight off all of these different things. So you'll find for many of your sensitivities, there's a wonderful technique that uses acupressure to eliminate sensitivities, and it's called NAET. To give an idea of the power of this technique, our foundation funded a study using NAET for autism. And in the study, which has been published, showed that in the 30 children who were treated, 23 of the 30 children were back in regular school after 1 year of NAET treatment versus 0 out of 30 in the control group. So this is a very gentle but very effective way for eliminating sensitivities. Many of you with fibromyalgia will find that you also have what we call brain fog, difficulty with word finding, word substitution. So let your spouse know if you call them by the wrong name. That's not a Freudian slip. That's brain fog. Also difficulty with short-term memory. Nasal congestion, sinusitis, irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. Both the sinus and colon symptoms come from the Candida overgrowth. frequent infections, weight gain. Average weight gain, we'll talk about weight gain in a bit, is 32.5 pounds in fibromyalgia because of the metabolic changes that are going on. You can't lose the weight until you get your metabolism fixed. And we're going to talk about that today. 73% will have loss of libido, and sugar addiction is another major issue. So all of these are very common problems that you're going to see as part of the fibromyalgia process. If this sounds familiar, then you've got it. Now, what causes the energy crisis to be severe? It's like asking what causes you to trip a circuit breaker in your home. The name of the circuit breaker that goes offline is called the hypothalamus. It's a major control center of the brain, controls sleep, hormones, temperature, blood pressure. And when energy drops to a certain point, because it uses more energy for its size than any place else in the body, it goes offline first. No damage to it. It's just like tripping a circuit breaker. So some of the common stresses that will trigger the energy crisis of fibromyalgia would be infections, especially yeast, Candida overgrowth, but viral infections, Lyme disease, a host of other infections, nutritional deficiencies, food sensitivities, environmental toxins, hormonal deficiencies, disrupted sleep, and stress. So these are just some of the more common things that can trigger the problem. So let's go ahead and start with good quality sleep. So how many of you out there are able to get your 9 hours sleep at night and wake up refreshed? If not, we're going to tell you what you need to do. So again, remember, most of human history, 9 hours a night. So number one, do you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? If you have trouble with these, there are essential oils that can be remarkably helpful. Mandarin is for the mandarin peel, very, very helpful. Lemon balm, which not only calms you and helps you sleep, but also has been shown to have antiviral properties, which can be very helpful for many people. Ravensara, lavender. There's a reason the French love that blue plant, those blue flowers, and you'll see bunches of lavender flowers around. Both the smell of lavender as well as taking it by mouth can be very, very effective at helping people to calm and go into restful sleep. Meanwhile, for those of you with anxiety, there is an amazing herb. It's a cousin, basically is associated with the echinacea, but it's a special breed and form of the echinacea that has been dramatically effective. In fact, in head-on studies, it's as effective as a Valium family of medications, but without side effects. So whether you have anxiety during the day or you just want to have something to help you sleep. And I don't have anxiety, but part of my sleep regimen is I take some of the Echinacea augustifolia about an hour before bedtime. So if you take 1 to 2 pills, 20 to 40 milligrams twice a day after 6 weeks, amazing for helping to deal with anxiety, which is a common cause of fatigue. And if you just take 1 or 2 before bedtime, it's very, very good for sleep. So we talked about the sleep things. There are a number of other things. Let's take a moment looking at some other things for sleep. Many of you may find that you wake up in the middle of the night, and you may be waking up in the middle of the night for a number of reasons. So here's some simple things to try that may help very quickly. Number one, eat a 1-ounce protein snack before bedtime. A hard-boiled egg makes it very convenient. So if you go ahead and if you're waking up in the middle of the night because you're dropping your blood sugar, especially if you're having nightmares, if you wake up with a sweat, you may be dropping blood sugar. So a 1-ounce protein snack at bedtime, just try it. It's the cheapest medical test you're going to be able to do. And you'll find that night, if you're sleeping more peacefully through the night and not waking up as much, you have an answer. And there's other things we can do to maintain blood sugar during the night, but protein snack, not carbohydrates. Carbs will make the problem worse. The second thing will be, are you waking up with a sweat from acid reflux? And if you have nighttime acid reflux, taking a half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of Arm & Hammer baking soda dissolved in maybe 4 ounces of water right before bedtime to neutralize stomach acid can make a really big difference. because it gives you a 4-hour head start before your stomach is making acid again. In addition, for those of you who have that problem, if you get the Cures A to Z app, just look up heartburn and look up GERDs, acid reflux, and look up nighttime reflux. It'll go through a whole simple regimen for taking care of that. Certainly, we'll talk about optimizing hormones as well, and these are some of the main things that cause the 2 in the morning wakings. Now, tip number 2, once you've gotten yourself a good night's sleep, all kind of natural ways to do that are very, very effective, then let's take a look at the hormones. You want to optimize thyroid function. Thyroid is a small gland in the neck, and it basically is our body's gas pedal. So if your thyroid is not working, there's no way you can make enough energy to thrive. And this has a host of other problems that come with it. So you need to realize, too, that the blood tests miss the large majority of people who need thyroid hormone. And an example that I gave Dr. Oz, who's a friend who he likes to run with this analogy, it really helps to know where the normal range in blood tests come from. They take 100 people, the 95 in the middle, it's called 2 standard deviations, are defined as the normal range, and the 2.5 lowest and highest are abnormal. So to give an example of how this would be and the way we can understand day to day, and medically, a normal range for shoe sizes would be size 5 to 13. If you were making $8,100 a year, medically, you would be in the normal range for income. And the doctor would say there's no problem unless you're threatening to lower his income to $8,100 a year. Then he'd say there's a problem. Same with thyroid. If you're on the low end of the normal range with thyroid, the test will be normal. The doctor will say you're fine. It's like having a size 5 shoe. The doctor, oh, 5 is in the normal range, but trying to put that on my size 13 foot, good luck. It's not going to fit. So how do you tell if you need thyroid hormone? Fatigue, classic symptom, weight gain, achiness, cold intolerance. You'll see the outer third of the eyebrows will tend to be thin. So look at your friends, look at their outer eyebrows, and then look at yours. You'll find poor memory, depression. You'll also tend to see things like constipation, although with this illness, gut infections can cause that to go either way. Unexplained infertility. No thyroid, very, very common cause of that. Miscarriages, things along those lines. So the low thyroid will cause a host of problems, high cholesterol, list goes on and on. But if you're tired, weight gain, achy, cold intolerant, you deserve a trial of thyroid hormone. And some of you may have noticed that, gee, that sounds an awful lot like fibromyalgia. And yes, virtually everybody, I'd say over 90% of people with fibromyalgia deserve a trial of thyroid hormone to see if it helps, regardless of their blood tests. And I like to use the natural thyroid, things like Nature-Throid, and Nutritional Support to help optimize thyroid function. They can make a great big difference. So we looked at weight gain. Weight gain, so many people suffer with that, and it drives them nuts. They're sitting there eating this little salad, and they're blimping out and gaining weight, and a friend across from them is pigging out on Big Macs and stuff, and skinny as a rail. Well, it's all about your metabolism. And that's what makes the biggest difference in terms of weight. So as you mentioned, people with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, 2 studies in a research center showed an average 32.5 pound weight gain. In general, to help promote weight loss, in addition to common sense eating and exercise and things along those lines, you want to address the thyroid and adrenal hormone deficiencies. If you don't do that, you can't lose weight. There's a supplement called acetylcarnitine, 1,000 milligrams a day. It won't cause you to lose weight, but it will allow you to lose weight. This recommendation is mostly for people with fibromyalgia, and they should do it for 3 to 4 months. Otherwise, for day-to-day fatigue, you don't need that. Treating the Candida overgrowth seems to be very important. Candida grow by fermenting sugar, and they seem to have evolved a way of getting their hosts to feed them. So if you find you're going through the cupboard and looking for something sweet to eat, you know, what I call the happy Twinkie hunter, and you have the nasal congestion, irritable bowel syndrome, there's no test for it, but you likely have Candida overgrowth. We'll talk about treating that as we go forward. Getting 8 hours sleep a night. Studies show that if you don't get sleep, you're going to have a 30% adequate sleep. You're going to have a 30% higher risk of obesity and be an average of 6.5 pounds heavier. So in some ways, the studies show you can actually sleep your way to skinny, because sleep is when we make things such as growth hormone, which turns fat into muscle, and leptin, which tells us that we're satisfied and full. And then another very important thing is treating the insulin resistance. When you have elevated insulin, and we're looking at about half of the population, it's estimated, will develop diabetes and insulin resistance during their lifetime. Insulin diabetes, adult diabetes, used to be extremely rare, and now we're looking at half the population. Again, easy to treat if you know how. So looking at thyroid, achy, weight gain, cold intolerant. Okay, what do you do? One, nice to have a holistic doctor, because most of the standard doctors won't treat if the test is abnormal. Doesn't matter if you're half dead. Test is fine, no problem. So go to a holistic doctor. But there's a lot that you can do on your own to optimize thyroid function. Iodine is critical for thyroid function. Thyroid, called T4, T3, is simply a combination of the amino acid tyrosine and iodine. And iodine is a limiting factor. We barely had enough iodine in the diet. That's why the government mandated iodizing salt. Unfortunately, most of the salt that we eat is in food processing, does not have iodine in it. And you've lost half of the iodine in our diet in the last 50 years as bakers have shifted from using iodine in flour to using bromide, which actually blocks iodine function. And iodine is critical not just for thyroid, but also breast tissue function. So if you're having breast tenderness, breast cysts, fibrocystic breast disease, that is a really strong marker that taking iodine will be very helpful. What I recommend in anybody with fatigue, anybody with breast cysts or tenderness, or really most anybody, is to get a supplement that has 6.25 milligram. That's 6,250. That should be mcg, not milligram. 6,250 micrograms of iodine. There's a very good one out there. Take one a day. Take it from one bottle. Take it for 90 days. And that way you'll fill the tank. Some of you will choose to stay on it longer because you feel so much better on it. And others will find that if you simply make sure that your multivitamin has 150 to 200 micrograms of iodine, then that will go ahead and maintain it. But it's a really good idea for most everybody. Just go ahead and get one bottle of 6.25 milligram iodine, take it for the 90 days, fill the tank, and make sure that's taken care of. So we've talked about thyroid. Now let's take a look at another important hormonal problem, and that would be adrenal fatigue. The adrenal is our stress handler, and because of the increased stress of modern life, you're seeing adrenal exhaustion being very, very common. How do you tell? The tests will miss over 99.9% of people with it, because the tests are looking for low adrenal that will kill you. If it's not going to kill you, the test will say you're normal. There's a simple way to tell if you need adrenal support. Do you get irritable when hungry? It's funny, the candy bar advertising execs have coined the term hangry, or hungry and angry. And it's actually kind of cynical, because the worst thing you can do when you're having that is to eat a candy bar. It'll make you feel better for about a half hour and then put you on an emotional roller coaster. But that doesn't matter. It sells candy bars. But if you get that irritable when hungry, you need adrenal support. And the funny thing is you're going to find you feel so much better. So how do you tell? Again, irritable when hungry, tendency to low blood pressure, crashing with stress, if you have trouble handling stress, frequent sore throats, infections. These are markers for severe adrenal fatigue that we see. And sugar addiction. If you get that as part of feed me now or I'll kill you, it's not a happy Twinkie hunter kind of a thing. It's more, if anybody gets between you and that sugar, it's like getting between a mama bear and the cub, and claws come out, kill kind of a thing. So that kind of like sugar now, again, feed me now or I'll kill you, describes it pretty well. And there's natural adrenal support that can make all the difference. So a very simple way to smooth that right out, smooth out your energy, smooth out the sugar cravings, keep you from killing your spouse, all of those kind of things, would be to combine adrenal extracts that are very helpful for the adrenal glands, the adrenal hormones DHEA and pregnenolone, It's funny, with chronic fatigue syndrome, we see that the pregnenolone level is often non-detectable. And that's the mother hormone for all of the other hormones made by the adrenal, ovaries, and testes. Vitamin C and pantothenic acid, I'm not talking about RDA or ridiculous dietary allowance amounts, but optimal levels, critical for adrenal function. The adrenal and brain are the two key areas in the body that use vitamin C, and the adrenal will store vitamin C because it's so essential. Licorice slows down the breakdown of cortisol, actually has secondary benefits as an antiviral. The funny thing about natural things is you talk about medications and they go through all the side effects. When you talk about the natural things, you talk about what it helps, and then you talk about not side effects, but side benefits. So licorice not just supports cortisol, but it helps with indigestion. It helps as an antiviral. It has a host of side benefits. And then tyrosine, which helps your body make the adrenal hormone adrenaline. So all of these can be found in a single capsule or two a day. It's very simple, and you're going to find that you feel dramatically better. Now, other things that are very important if you have low adrenal, you've got to stay hydrated, because the adrenal not just keeps your blood sugar from dropping, but it also helps you hold on to salt and water. And when the adrenal is low, you're going to drink like a fish and pee like a racehorse. You're going to say, I'm drinking more than everybody else, but you're still going to be dehydrated. So the next time you're tired, try this simple thing. Get 12 ounces of cold water, drink it. And if you find that it goes down really quickly instead of sipping it, your body is saying that it's dehydrated. In addition, within about 5 minutes, and often within 1 minute, you may find that it's like the bright switch goes on, your mind clears up, your energy clears up, and you'll see very quickly that your energy will go up. So simple test. Drink 12 ounces of cold water when you're tired and see how you feel. And you're going to start to realize that dehydration is a very, very common problem. You also want to increase your salt intake, preferably using a good quality sea salt. You hear a lot about the benefits of salt restriction, but the science shows that that's utter rubbish. What the science shows is that unless you have congestive heart failure, there's one main benefit to salt restriction. This is an important benefit. The main benefit is that the people who salt restricted die younger, and the Social Security system thanks you. But I don't think that's the way that I want to help our Social Security system. Salt is good for you. Salt is critical. Listen to your body and eat the amount of salt that your body wants, and preferably with good, high-quality sea salt. So looking at adrenal support, if you have those feed me now or I'll kill you moments, so it's kind of hangry moments, add adrenal support. For those of you in marriage counseling or a divorce lawyer, you may be pleasantly surprised that the problem goes away with adrenal support, because what's been happening is when you get irritable, when the blood sugar drops, it's as if you're suffocating sugar, and you get this irritable, crazy mood shift stuff. So guide your spouse or your friends. If you have this, let them know that when I get that way, don't try to reason with me, don't try to be supportive and all of that. Just feed me. Make a little card that says, am I irritable? Just feed me. And you'll find that your relationships will suddenly get so much better. And when you take the adrenal support, that's going to smooth right out. It's funny, we see that so many times, and people realize, oh my God, I didn't have to divorce the guy. It was just, it was low adrenal. So we've talked about thyroid, we've talked about adrenal. Let's take a look at ovarian and testicular function, reproductive hormones. And in women, especially as they're entering their mid-40s, even for 5 to 12 years before their periods stop, they're going to start having estrogen and progesterone deficiency. It's not something where it's fine, and boom, it's gone. It just slowly drifts. And it takes a while of drifting before the periods stop. And during those times, you're going to have symptoms of low estrogen and progesterone. In women, the symptoms that you're going to see will be difficulty sleeping, anxiety, mood shifts. So just taking and fatigue. So just taking a little bit of the bioidentical, not the poison that their doctors have been taught to use because it's palatable and expensive, but the bioidentical estrogen and progesterone, and in men, bioidentical testosterone. Interestingly, the studies are showing that in men, who have the metabolic syndrome, which is the high cholesterol, high blood pressure, um, the diabetes or prediabetes, difficulty with erections, depression, poor mood, all of these tend to be associated with low testosterone. Again, it may not be in the lowest 2% of the population where the test is low, but they'll be in the lowest 25 to 30%. And this study showed that giving the bioidentical testosterone, not the bodybuilder chemicals, but the bioidentical natural stuff, can help improve all of that. Again, only use bioidenticals. So we've looked at the hormones. Now let's take a look at Candida. As you mentioned before, if you have nasal congestion, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, these are symptoms of Candida overgrowth in the body. If it's severe, you may find that you get these mouth sores inside the mouth. They hurt for about 10 days, little small things, but they hurt quite a bit. And that's a symptom of Candida overgrowth. You find when you treat the Candida, all of these things, when you treat it properly, all of these go away. Irritable bowel syndrome often goes away. The sinusitis goes away. And the way that you treat Candida is to avoid sugars. You want to get a good probiotic, and it's good to get one that has the human strains. You know, it's not so much how many of the bacteria are in it, but are they acid resistant so your stomach acid doesn't kill them? Are they the strains that your body needs? The herb berberine, wonderful, wonderful herb. It's underappreciated just because it's so cheap, but it helps kill off the Candida, other gut infections. It helps with diabetes. It helps lower cholesterol. It's really remarkable. And then the medication diflucan, 200 milligrams a day for 6 weeks. For Candida that's really in place, the natural remedies by itself usually are not going to be enough to get rid of it. There are many things, natural antifungals, but they don't get absorbed in the body, so they don't get to the sinuses and the other places that they're needed. So in the people that I treat, I will add the diflucan for at least 6 weeks, along with the natural antifungals, probiotics, and avoiding sugar. Now, tip number 6, and this may as well be tip number 1, frankly. You need to get a good multivitamin. As we mentioned earlier, food processors have stripped out half of the vitamins and minerals in our diet in food processing. This is why, for the first time in human history, people are being both obese and malnourished at the same time. Never seen it before. They're malnourished because food processing is stripping out everything from A to Z except calories. And the body is craving, trying to get the nutrients it needs, so it keeps eating more and more. But there's, how did a friend of mine from Europe say, she couldn't speak English very well, and went out to an American restaurant, and she was eating it, and she was trying to explain it, and finally she said, there's no food in this food. And that was one of the best descriptions I've heard. So I think it's a good idea for everybody to get a good multivitamin. And again, most of the multivitamins out there are not good. They supply maybe the RDA, or what I call ridiculous dietary allowances. They're nowhere near optimal. Especially for energy, you want to make sure that it's high in the B vitamins, at least 25 to 50 milligrams of each of the B vitamins. That they have the B vitamins in bioactive forms, such as methylcobalamin, P5P, methylfolate, and forms that the body can use effectively. Magnesium, likely the most single important nutritional deficiency in this country. We used to have about 600 milligrams a day in our diet. Now we're down to 245 because of food processing. Low magnesium equals fatigue, muscle pain, and there's over 300 chemical reactions that the magnesium is critical for, and all of those are stressed. So you want to be getting 150 to 200 milligrams of magnesium a day in your multi. You want chelated minerals so they're easier to absorb. You want to make sure you have at least 400 units of vitamin D. The current advice to avoid sunshine will go down as one of the most insane recommendations that doctors have made in history ever. Go with leeches instead. I mean, the advice to avoid sunshine is just utterly absurd, and it's estimated that it's causing thousands of deaths each year. Sunshine is critical for vitamin D, and your immune function will suffer if you don't have the vitamin D. Higher incidence of diabetes, multiple sclerosis, a host of autoimmune diseases being attributed to vitamin D deficiency. The proper advice is to avoid sunburn, not sunshine. And then make sure you're getting 150 to 200 micrograms of iodine a day. All of these should be in the multivitamin you're taking every day. If not, it's not doing the job it should. And this makes it really easy. A good multivitamin each morning. And we'll talk about another nutrient called D-Ribose. You do that every morning. That's going to be the best 30 seconds for energy you're going to spend all day. It will skyrocket your energy. And that's a really good place to begin. A good solid multi and the D-Ribose. Other nutritional advice: increase water, decrease sugar, and unless you have high blood pressure, increase your salt intake. Let your body tell you how much salt it needs. It really makes a big difference for you. Now, how many of you out there are sugar addicts? Raise your hand. Is that everybody? Okay. Most of us are nowadays, and it's just a funny thing. It's one of the things that drove me into my fibromyalgia when I had it. And to just say stop sugar is like telling an addict to stop shooting up heroin. It's just not going to happen. You've got to get rid of what's causing the cravings in the first place with any addiction. And you'll find there's 4 main things driving sugar addiction. In the book, The Complete Guide to Beating Sugar Addiction, that's the new title of the updated book. 1, it's fatigue caused by all the things we talked about today. Number 2 is low adrenal. Number 3 is Candida. And number 4 is drops in estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. All of those will cause sugar cravings. So for those of you who have sugar addiction, I recommend The Complete Guide to Beating Sugar Addiction. It doesn't tell you to stop everything you enjoy. It tells you how to enjoy it in a healthy way and get rid of the cravings. So let's talk about a healthy sugar, D-Ribose. D-Ribose is a sugar that you can't find in the diet. It's made by our body as the backbone of energy production and the backbone of DNA and RNA, deoxyribose nucleic acid. So it's critical in the body, and when you have an energy crisis, the body needs more ribose, and it has trouble holding on to it because it's using it all up, trying to keep up. So if you look at most of the energy molecules, ATP, FAD, acetyl-CoA, also as I mentioned, DNA and RNA, the backbone of all of these molecules is ribose. And again, you can't get it from food. That's not where it comes from. Your body has to make it. So ribose is critical to energy production, and here's how you do it. Let's take a look at the second study we had done on ribose. We took 257 people with severe fatigue at 53 health centers, and we gave them ribose. Energy went up an average of 61% within 3 to 6 weeks. Picture what 61% more energy would feel like. But you want to be sure that you use the powders, otherwise you're going to be taking 30 pills a day, and it's absurd. You want to take a 5-gram scoop 3 times a day in the beginning. And what I do now is I just take 1 scoop each morning along with my multi. And as I said, this is going to be the best 30 seconds for energy you'll spend all day. Get the multi, get the ribose, that's the place to begin. Within a month, they're going to be feeling a lot better. Interestingly, sleep improved, mental clarity improved, pain went down, overall well-being went up by 37%, all from one simple nutrient. Makes a wonderful, wonderful difference for people. So I would go ahead and get the ribose powder. I would take 1 scoop 3 times a day for 3 weeks, and then you can drop it down to 2 a day or even just once in the morning. It's easy. Comes as a powder, looks and tastes like sugar. You can put it in your tea, you can put it in your coffee, you can put it in your food. I just add water. Makes it really easy. By 3 weeks, by 1 container, you're going to be seeing the difference. The side effect is about 5% of people get over-energized, and they'll feel kind of a little hyper kind of a thing. And that's a sign that they need adrenal support, because this sugar, interestingly, actually gently lowers blood sugar. So if you find that you're getting that kind of edgy thing from it, be sure that's a sign that you need the adrenal support with it, and you'll find that you're going to feel a lot better for the adrenal support also as well. So a very nice, simple way for people to begin. Multivitamin, Shine Ribose, or D-Ribose, and give it 3 weeks. You'll see. You're going to be amazed. Now, another critical thing would be omega-3 fatty acids. We have an amazing, massive drop in omega-3s in the diet with food processing by switching from grass-fed beef, which has a good amount of omega-3, to grain-fed, which doesn't. And when you don't have enough of the omega-3s, it's critical for immune function. Otherwise, you're going to see inflammation if you're not getting enough, and that's one of the main reasons we're seeing so much more arthritis and other inflammatory problems these days. Brain health. I was asked to write the textbook on nutrition and mental health was one of the main nutrition textbooks in the country that they use in most colleges and nutrition training courses. And the omega-3s, so critical. I mean, this was a 20,000-page chapter, and the omega-3s are the number one thing. They really help with mood. They help with energy. But again, here's the thing. If you're taking most omega-3s, you have to take 7, 8 of those big honker fish oil pills to get the amount of omega-3 you need. And that means, one, it's 7 pills. Number two, a lot of the oil is rancid in it. And you're going to find that all day you're having these fish oil burps. And every time you burp, every cat's nose in the neighborhood goes up like an infield flag going, where's my new best friend? I mean, it's just, the fish oil burps are lousy. Part of what I try to do is to simplify things because I don't want people taking handfuls of pills all day. So what I recommend for the people that I treat is that they use what's called a vectorized fish oil, or vectorized omega-3. You don't even need the oils, just the omega-3s. Most of that oil in that big capsule, you may as well be taking rancid soybean oil. You just need the omega-3s. And you want it with the phospholipids that carry it right into the cells. And this way, people can take one small pill a day and get a better effect than from 7, 8 of the big fish oil pills and no fish oil burps, and it's a whole lot cheaper and less toxic. You don't get the toxins. So it's very easy to get what you need. You don't need to be taking handfuls of pills all day to be getting that. And then number 10, exercise, preferably in the sunshine. Both of these will improve energy and mood a lot. So go for your walks, go in the sunshine so you get your vitamin D. And it's, again, the proper advice, avoid sunburn, not sunshine. So we've talked about a number of things. People often ask me, well, what do you do each day? And my daily regimen is I take the multivitamin, special high-potency multi. I take the Ribose. I take a special highly absorbed curcumin. And again, most curcumins will not work. You'd have to take 50 to 500 pills of turmerics and poorly absorbed curcumins to get the effect that you can get in one pill of the right form that has the turmerone essential oil added back in, increases absorption 8-fold. So I take one of those each morning just because the health benefits are so high. I feel great, but it just has so much that it adds. And I take coenzyme Q10, 200 milligrams a day. So very simple regimen. And, if you took a look at my travel and teaching schedule and all the rest, I mean, for example, last 6 months of this year or the year before, I logged over 100,000 flight miles in addition to doing all the other teaching and all the patient care. We treat people from all over the world who have chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, often by phone consultation because they're too sick to travel. And then check a ferritin blood test if you're having fatigue. That's the test to check for iron. An iron test is actually meaningless. It has to be the ferritin test for iron. And ignore the normal range. It needs to be over 60. If the doctor says it's normal, say thank you, but what's the actual number? If it's under 60, you need iron supplementation. So we've talked about the 10 key things for optimizing energy. It's a fairly simple thing. You want to start with your sleep. You want to optimize the different hormones. You want to treat Candida if it's present. You want to get nutritional support. You want to get your exercise. Some just good basic common sense stuff, and you're going to feel dramatically better. But one other major cause for fatigue is that people have pain. 1 out of 3 Americans have pain. And it's a big problem because doctors are simply not taught about how to treat pain, and they don't even know that they don't know. So it's sad. I mean, there was a study that just came out recently that showed that the arthritis medications like ibuprofen, you're looking at that they cause about conservatively 30 to 50,000 deaths a year from those medications. You may not have heard about that in the news media. Some of them ran 2 minutes on it. If an herbal had caused a hemorrhoid, it would have been front page on USA Today and taken up a week of it. But 50,000 deaths from ibuprofen, not a word, or barely any. We could talk about why that is, but think about it. Who's their main advertiser for most of the media things? Who's a major one anyway? So our current approach to pain management is horrible. And so what's the most common cause of pain in this country? It's muscle pain. When muscles don't have enough energy, they're like a spring. They get locked in a shortened position. It takes more energy to stretch the muscle than it does for it to contract. That's why after a hard workout, you don't come home and say, honey, such a hard day, my muscles are all loose and limp. You say they're all tight. So we'll see that with the human energy crisis, people find that their muscles get stuck in a shortened position and they hurt. And then chronic pain will trigger what's called brain pain, where the body keeps amplifying it, because pain is just your body's way of trying to get your attention. It says it's like the oil light on the dashboard saying, pay attention to this. So if the oil light is going on and you go to the doctor and you say this oil light is annoying, what does the doctor do? They put a Band-Aid over it. Then your motor burns out and you wonder, God, I've had a lousy day, you know. And then if it's still bothering you, they may cut the light out or they smash it with a hammer. And we forget common sense things sometimes. How do you make the oil light go out? You put oil in the car. How do you make pain go away? By giving your body what it's asking for. The problem is that we don't come with an owner's manual saying what the flashing warning light is saying that we need. But it's not that hard. There's some simple things you can start with. There's a mix, an herbal mix that has the highly absorbed curcumin, a special form of Boswellia, DLPA, and nattokinase, which has been a pain relief miracle. I've seen people where morphine didn't make the pain go away. And this combination, after 6 weeks, they got dramatic relief. But it's critical to use. There's only one form of curcumin in the world that I will use, because all the other ones, you just have to take so many pills to get the clinical effect. The DLPA is what your body uses to make your own endorphins. This is your own basically natural pain-fighting molecules. And nattokinase helps to break down the inflammation around pain so that your body's repair crews and things can get to the area. When I first used this, I expected to see, okay, this would be kind of reasonable to add. I was not prepared for the effects were miraculous. What people were saying was just amazing. Give it 6 weeks. You can take it with any other pain medications that you're taking. If I had to be on a desert island and I could only take one thing, you're looking at it right there, that combination. So let me give one bonus tip for optimizing energy. If you do all these things we talk about, so you can have more energy, so you can go back to doing stuff you hate that made you sick in the first place, you wasted your time being here today. Your body will crash you anyway and take you out of the game. So one of the most critical things you can do, Joseph Campbell, who's one of the most world-renowned historical archaeologists or cultural archaeologists, if you want to look at it that way, when asked to summarize his whole lifetime in one sentence, he said, follow your bliss. And I can't say it any better. Choose to pay attention to just the things that feel good and only do those things. If something doesn't feel good, by and large, don't do it. Now you're going to find, you say, well, how about paying my taxes? You'll find it feels better to pay your taxes than to go to jail, so you'll do it. And it'll feel better not to be homeless, so you'll go to your job. But even at your job, you'll find there's things that feel good to do and things that don't. And as you start focusing on the things that feel good and the things you absolutely have to do otherwise, you're going to feel better to do them. But otherwise, you'll find they're going to fall away and other people will start picking up that stuff and you're going to be doing really well on the things you love and thriving. And you're going to be getting more and more successful because they're doing what you love. Also, people will keep telling you what you should do. Should do this, should do that. You know, and they're always going around shooting on you. And ignore it. If they're saying this is what you should do to be happy, tell them, go ahead and do that. Thanks. Good. You know, but they don't know who you are and they don't know what you need to do to be successful or happy. The way that you can tell who you are and what's authentic is how it feels to you. Your brain doesn't know. Your brain will just continually feed back what you've been told by other people. Your feelings know what's authentic to you. So take a moment, you know, daydream, have a couple shots of tequila, whatever it takes to turn your brain off, and just get a sense of what feels good to you. And then learn to start paying attention to that. When you're watching the evening news, and if you think it's the news, watch all 5 major news networks cover a story, and you'll think you're on 5 different planets. They're all fictions. They're all dramatizations, or at least 4 of them are, because they're saying totally different, viewpoints of things. Mostly they're just trying to scare you so that you'll watch and they can sell advertising. So when you're watching the media, watching the news, if it doesn't feel good, turn it off. There's this Tai Chi move where you just pause, center, when you're watching the stuff that makes you want to grit your teeth on TV, reach your hands to the side, grab the remote control, point it at the TV, and click off. You'll feel so much better, and your energy will go up. So again, as you start making more energy, use it for things that feel good. So a couple other things. We talked about not having an owner's manual for your body. Now you do. There's a free app. There's a $2 upgrade. It's called Cures A to Z. You can get it for your iPhone, your Android. And you can look up anything from acne to zoster. It'll give a very quick bullet point summary. Here's what's going on, and here's the best mix of natural and prescription treatments to help you get better. And I'm not against, I'm a doctor. I'm not against medicines. I'm just against the insane way that they're used in this country. It's really not based on science. They make a claim to it, but it really isn't. That's a whole other discussion what it is. But I find natural remedies are often much more effective and safer. So this way, the app will guide you on whatever's going on. Say, here are the things that are most likely in my 40 years of medical practice, and probably over 100,000 research studies I've reviewed at this point. I attempt to be a science geek, and what all that shows. And it kind of summarizes it, as my daughter made sure I did, in short, simple bullet points. You'll find it's a lot of fun. Other tools that you'll find very helpful. For more information ongoing, there's a free email and newsletter that basically comes out when I feel like it. It's about every week or two. And if you want to go to endfatigue.com, you can just go ahead and sign up for the free newsletter. For those of you who want to optimize energy, there's a free energy analysis program. And you can go to the endfatigue.com, click on the free energy analysis program. It's a 10-minute quiz. It can even analyze your lab tests. If you don't need a lab test, but if you do have them, it'll analyze the pertinent lab tests and tell you what you need to do to optimize your energy. We talked about the Cures A to Z app. There are hundreds and hundreds of useful articles, much, much more. Also, vitality101.com will have even more resources in terms of how to treat specific conditions and things along those lines. But again, we talked about a lot of things today, but it's very simple. The free energy analysis program at endfatigue.com. Take the 10-minute quiz, and it will tell you, here is what you need to do to optimize your energy. Short, sweet, simple, and that's my job. I like making things very simple. I don't like people taking handfuls of pills. I like them knowing what works the best, and I like to take complex things and just boil them down in ways that are short and sweet. And the energy analysis program, which is free, is our way of making that available to everybody. For those of you with severe fatigue or who want more information, and certainly those with fibromyalgia, I recommend the Fatigue and Fibromyalgia Solution. It's a nice, simple book. It's written in easy-to-read language. My other book, From Fatigue to Fantastic, is more of a medical textbook. This is more short, sweet, and simple. So I'm happy to stay and take questions for as long as people would like to ask them, or at least until they kick us off. So, Lexi, I pass it back to you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Teitelbaum. We do have some questions already in the queue, so I want to just jump right in and get started. One has to do with, just a moment, one has to do with taking DHEA. It says for women in menopause, what's the right ratio in terms of DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, estrogen, et cetera?
There's not a specific ratio. It really depends on the individual case. For DHEA, it's not unreasonable to just take 10 milligrams. And a lot of the best adrenal products will have 10 milligrams of DHEA in it, and maybe 10 to 25 milligrams of pregnenolone. For most women, it's okay just to take that, unless they have problems with acne or darkening of facial hair, then I wouldn't. But usually I'm going to do the blood level for the DHEA, sulfate, and the pregnenolone, and I'm going to base the dosing on the blood result. That something is over the counter is irrelevant to your body. The body doesn't think that, oh, well, we had wise politicians that decided this is over the counter and that's prescription, so the over the counter is okay. It has nothing to do with that. It's a hormone, it's a potent hormone, and it's really good to know what the blood levels are. The energy analysis program, actually, if you get a DHEA sulfate level, you can plug the result in, it'll tell you how much is optimal for you. But the simple answer, though, for most men, 25 milligrams once or twice a day. And for most women, 5 to 10 milligrams a day, unless they have an elevated DHEA or diabetes or breast cancer, in which case I wouldn't without being guided by a holistic physician.
All right, thank you. Another question, what's the safest way to increase tested low cortisol levels? The saliva was tested 4 times a day in February and March, and she has been supplementing ever since with rhodiola, cordyceps, licorice, and taurine. And she also said, thank you so much for the excellent product recommendations.
Oh, you're very welcome. Again, what we talk about with the adrenal glandulars, well, first of all, the salivary testing and the blood testing, neither of them is perfect. And I will often use, sometimes I'll use both. The symptoms are much more. If people have irritability when hungry, tend to low blood pressure, lightheadedness with standing, crashing with stress, that really tells me much more than the salivary or blood cortisols, even though those do add some information. I find that, again, the products that I like will have a mix of the adrenal glandulars, licorice, vitamin C, vitamin B5, maybe some DHEA, pregnenolone. These will all be in one combination, and that will tend to smooth out the adrenal problems. If not, I will then add bioidentical prescription cortisol. But again, in high doses, that's very toxic. In the tiny, tiny dosing we use, it can be very helpful and very safe. So the simple adrenal combinations we talked about, very good way to begin. But if the problems persist, that's a good time to see a holistic practitioner. And again, I do treat people by phone from all over the world. We consult for simple things like adrenal fatigue. There's no need. But if you have fibromyalgia and much more complex illnesses, that's when it's time for, because I'll do a 3-4 hour consultation with the individual.
Excellent. Here is another question that I think I can answer. It's wondering if this was recorded. Yes, this webinar was recorded, and within 24 hours it will be available on YouTube. So go to YouTube and look for the Terry Talks Nutrition channel, and you will find this webinar, and you can replay it at your leisure, can play it on demand. If you have friends that you think would benefit from this information, please make sure that they know how to find it. We would be very honored if you recommended us. Additionally, on the Terry Talks Nutrition website, there will also be links to this webinar if you would like to replay this information at your leisure. Okay, here's another question that's come is there a difference between adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue? I have the typical symptoms of adrenal fatigue following over 2 years of 24/7 care for her husband. She now has extreme fatigue, spaciness, anxiety, and aches. Also, how can she recover and how long will it take?
Adrenal fatigue is one of literally over 100 things that can contribute to chronic fatigue and chronic fatigue syndrome. The adrenal fatigue has the irritability when hungry, those kind of things. If there's insomnia, can't sleep despite being exhausted, especially if there's widespread pain, then it's probably progressed into a fibromyalgia process. Our published research, which was a double-blind study, showed that by 3 months of using the SHINE protocol that we use, optimizing sleep, hormonal support, infections, nutritional support, exercise as able, as well as a number of other things. There's 91% of people improved with an average 90% increase in quality of life. It was 75% at 3 months, 90% at 2 years. So these are kind of the numbers. So these are very, very treatable things, and people respond very well, but most doctors are simply not trained in treating these issues. So again, if it's just the adrenal fatigue, that you can start with on your own, any holistic doctor. But if she also has widespread pain and difficulty with sleep, then it's probably fibromyalgia, and that would be something that a fibromyalgia expert would be best to be helping you with.
All right. Another question. This person says that she takes Ambien to sleep, but she does not take it every night. Would the echinacea product that you recommended work better?
They're different. The echinacea helps support sleep. The Ambien is mostly for inducing sleep. It helps you fall asleep, not so much for helping you stay asleep. And they work differently. So I haven't seen any studies comparing the one to the other. I find the two to be synergistic for people. The problem with the Ambien is that even though we don't see much in the way of addictive issues until people go over to 12.5 milligrams or higher, but you will see severe rebound insomnia, which means when you try to stop it, you're not going to sleep for 2 weeks. And because of that, it's really critical when weaning off the Ambien to wean off slowly. And then at the end, when you're going down from that last 2.5 or 1.25 milligrams to stopping, I will use 1 or 2 other non-addictive medications for 2 weeks to get people through that rebound insomnia. Then they can stop those and they can be done with the Ambien. The herbals that we talked about can be very helpful for sleep. By themselves in fibromyalgia, people are going to need a mix of herbal and natural therapies. There's no one thing by itself that's going to be enough. Their sleep disorder is so severe that it takes a combination of things.
Mm-hmm. I'd also want to point out that when you talked about the echinacea, it's not, it's very confusing to folks because echinacea is a wonderful immune supplement, but this is the anxiety product that you were talking about. The anxiety is a specific compound from echinacea, so you have to kind of look around until you find the one that's specific for anxiety, or it's not going to have the benefits that that person would expect, correct?
Yes, if you just use any old echinacea, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
You have to use the ones that have the specific components that will be helpful for the anxiety and therefore through that for the sleep as well.
Mm-hmm. So even though the compounds in the anxiety herbals come from echinacea angustifolia, you really need to look for one that's targeting anxiety, and that's a common question that we often get about helping to differentiate those two. Another
Absolutely.
question asks you about, you had mentioned iodine, and she says, how about iodine 2%? I'm not 100% sure I know what she means. Perhaps you do.
Yeah, the Lugol solution is really messy.
Oh.
And I prefer the pills because I don't like to walk around with a iodine-colored mouth and having it on my clothes. And also, it can be more irritating to the tissues. So the Lugol solution, the 2% iodine, used to be more helpful before we had really good forms that would be tablets.
Okay.
Or capsules. I prefer the capsule form.
Another individual wants to know that what are some symptoms that would improve, that would help you to know that the iodine is working? What physical changes would occur?
More energy, less cold intolerance. What the study showed is that the fatigue improves. Body temperature, interestingly, didn't go up much. You may have less pain. So just picture energy going up, mental clarity going up, weight going down, those kind of things.
Okay.
Things that improve thyroid function, as well as decreased breast cysts, breast tenderness. It's funny, our foundation was actually going to do a study looking at whether iodine deficiency was associated with increased risk of breast cancer. But when we did the literature search, that study had been done decades ago. It was found that women with breast cancer have much lower levels of iodine. So that had already been done and was just being ignored.
So more than just for energy, it has a lot of effects and benefits for helping to prevent cancer as well.
It's overall total body health, because it's like saying, well, my gas pedal doesn't go down. What will be helped by easing up the gas pedal and making it work? But, well, everything. Everything that's dependent on energy in the body.
Which would be everything in the body, right?
Basically, yes. That's why I tell people, just take it for 2 months. It's low cost. And, you know, some people very rarely, maybe less than 1%, will get indigestion. They'll get solar plexus pain. In that case, they should stop it, or acne. But for most people, you just take it for the bottle, and it really is, it's one of the lowest cost, simplest things you can do to optimize your health, just to fill the tank, to wash out the toxic fluorides and bromides. It's just a really good idea to do it for a bottle, and then see how you feel, and your body will tell you if you want to stand it or whether it's done.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question about a prescription medication. This lady says she does not have diabetes and she is not pre-diabetic. The doctor said that she should be on Victoza for weight loss and wants to know what your Victoza for weight loss and wants to know what you think of that.
Well, it depends. If they're using it for the weight loss, then that may be a reasonable thing. What most of the diabetes medications have in common, with the exception of metformin and insulin in children, not in adults, is that virtually every one of them has killed more people than it's helped. And that these side effects and toxicities somehow are just, nobody noticed the research on it until after the patent runs out for the medication. Then suddenly it's just, oh my God, it's killing more people than it's helping. And that's been the case for virtually every diabetes medication except metformin, which I teach to be an honorary health food store medication. So I would recommend that if the doctor is recommending it to her, that the doctor explain why.
Okay. Well, I think that I don't know very much about it myself, but I know that I know it's a diabetic medication, and that it may result in weight loss, but that it's not necessarily, I don't think it's been approved specifically for weight loss, but maybe that's old information. Maybe it's an off-label use.
Yeah. I mean, Lexi, it's important to understand that whether or not something has been approved for use has more to do with economics many times than science.
All right.
So I'm less concerned with whether it's been approved as to whether the science shows that the benefits outweigh the risks.
Here's another question.
Send that question back to your doctor, because if you don't understand why they're giving it to you, then they haven't done their job, and they need to know that. They want to know that you don't understand so they can explain it to you. And if they don't want to explain it to you, then maybe you need another doctor, you know.
Right. I think this person knows that they prescribed it to her for weight loss, but maybe just more talk to the doctor about risk versus benefits, what to expect.
And if it's for weight loss, it's not unreasonable to try. Let me put it that way. But there's a lot of other things I'd probably go with. Put differently, I've never prescribed it for weight loss. There are many other approaches I would take.
Jumping onto a new topic, we have a question about berberine. How much do you recommend to take for Candida?
The optimal dose for berberine is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. In the diabetes study, this is what they used. Some people get upset stomach from that, in which case lower the dose to 200 to 250 milligrams 3 times a day. Alternatively, you could do 500 milligrams twice a day. Most people's stomachs will be comfortable with it, but if it's not, then you just need to know to lower the dose.
Okay. There are some questions here asking for specific product names or brand names, et cetera. And I just wanted to let our listeners know that we try very hard to make this an educational opportunity and not to be an infomercial, so to speak. Additional questions, feel free to drop us an email. We'll do what we can to try to help answer your questions. But today we're not going to be talking about specific brands or specific product names. So thank you for your patience with that. Here's another question that came in. Wants to know, how do you travel with the powders? They're obviously having some struggles when they take the powders. I'm thinking they're talking about the vitamin nutrient powder, yes?
Yes, and the thing is that I just pack them in my suitcase. I have these little small containers, and I'll just put enough of the powder in to cover me for those days. And that's how I do it myself, just something with a nice screw lid, or you can even use a baggie to put it in. For the multivitamin, it's also reasonable just to carry a capsule multivitamin with you for travel days.
Awesome. Here's another question. Can practitioners use the energy analysis program?
Absolutely. In fact, I tease them that they can go ahead and I'll send them the questionnaire that we use in the program. They can give it to the people they treat and have them fill it out and give that questionnaire back to their staff. The staff can enter it, and then the doctor will look like they're the wizard who came up with all of this information. Oh my God. We are doing an update to the program that will give a much more detailed printout. That should be up about August 20th, hopefully even sooner than that. So what I would recommend, is go ahead and do the program, but go back, put a note on your calendar on your phone to go back and redo it. It's very quick after August 20th, because there's going to be a dramatic increase in information that we're going to be giving.
All right. Excellent. Good news. Another question, do you know of any mushrooms that are good for fortifying the immune system?
Well, maitake is a classic one. And it's funny, Costco will have these great big, plastic containers of dried maitake, so you can just throw them into soups or anything that you're making. It doesn't have to be an expensive supplement. You can just eat the mushroom itself.
Another question that has just come in wants to know, how do you handle waking up frequently at night to urinate?
Well, first of all, it's important to realize that gravity makes the water pool in our legs at night, during the day. And then when we kick our legs up and, in bed, gravity's no longer holding it there. So suddenly a liter of water is coming back into our body. And all of a sudden you got to pee it out. It's like drinking a liter of water. So one of the things you can do is for a couple hours before bedtime, just when you're sitting around, kick your feet up on a hassock or something so that the legs start to drain and you pee it out before you go to bed instead of during the night. In addition, sometimes we have urgency, and there's an herb called angelica. For those of you who, how do I say, my friend put it, you laugh so hard that the tears run down your legs sometimes. The angelica is amazing. So it's a really good herb for that, both during the day and at nighttime for the urgency. In severe cases, especially with fibromyalgia, if people are peeing a lot at night, it's often because the hormone that holds on to water, called antidiuretic hormone, is also low with all the other hormones. And we will actually give a little tablet of 1/10 of a milligram of DDAVP, or antidiuretic hormone, to take at bedtime. Same thing they give kids who bedwet so they don't pee at night. And that will keep them from peeing all night so they can get their sleep. Certainly in men that are 50 and up who have that, you want to look at prostate issues, have the doctor check the prostate, make sure it's okay. Although a lot of the prostate exams now do more harm than good, but there's a host of herbals that can be very helpful for prostate support. And Lexi, can they email you asking for prostate herbal support?
Sure. We can, you can enter any info at we'll give that contact information at the end, and if people want to have specific questions, we can certainly do that offline.
And can I mention one other thing too? There's a wonderful tool called Gravity Pal. For those of you who have back issues, you may want to go online and look it up. But do a search on Gravity Pal, P-A-L. It's a little inversion table that you lie on, and there's no side effects. And it can have really nice benefits. And it's a lot cheaper than traction and all the other stuff. So let me just, I hadn't mentioned that before, but I just want to make a mention of that. So look up the Gravity Pal thing. It's a fun thing that can be very helpful for those with back issues.
Awesome. Some very kind words about how much people have enjoyed this presentation and are big fans of your books and have taken advantage of your services, and thank you for everything you do. So very nice words.
Well, I do it because it's the most fun thing in the world to do.
Well, it is a fun thing to be able to powerfully help people that maybe sometimes think that there is no help to be had. Here's another question about, they've taken some of the suggestions in of some of the things that you've talked about during your presentation. They did it for a month, but they didn't have any noticeable benefits. Should they start over with something different, or were they on it for too short of time?
Well, I think it's, if one pair of shoes didn't fit, you don't want to try on the same pair of shoes over and over. So what I would do is do the energy analysis program that'll put together an organized protocol for them. And if you have a problem with the car, that the battery is dead and the starter doesn't work, and you just replace one, it's not going to help anything, even though the car needs it. Sometimes you have to get all the pieces in place at once. So for over 2/3 of people, if they just do the Ribose and a really solid multivitamin, they're going to start to feel better. And that's not the whole thing, but they're going to get a really good start within a month. But for other people, they've got issues that until you do those, nothing else is going to help. So that's at that point, that's when it really takes a thorough assessment, which is what we do. We do a 3-hour, really one-on-one of my time assessment of what's going on in their case and put together a very organized, comprehensive protocol.
Excellent. Here's a person who says that her fatigue is so severe that her muscles feel like they're often not even there. She tries to go for a walk, and she's just plodding along. She feels worse than if she didn't go for a walk in the first place. What can she do to start to exercise again to get stronger and to have more benefits from the exercise?
Well, when the problems are really severe, I mean, we talk about the start with the multivitamin and the ribose, some basic things, but you're going to see that about 15% of people with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, it's so severe that they can't even be up, and they're basically housebound a lot of the times. And one of the things we didn't talk about, but which is important, is something called orthostatic intolerance. When we stand up, gravity makes all the blood rush to our legs, and it's as if we lost 2-3 units of blood. And to be able to be an upright species, we had to develop the ability to send a message to our legs that says send the blood back up to our brain. It's called the autonomic nervous system. It's in that same hypothalamic control center we talked about, that circuit that we blow, fibromyalgia, that people blow. So treating the orthostatic intolerance, and that was beyond the scope of the talk. On our website, we have articles on it. If you go to Vitality 101, I think it would be, and look up orthostatic intolerance. Or people can email me too. My email address is fatiguedoc, FATIGUEDOC @gmail.com. And I can send a quiz that will screen for orthostatic intolerance. It's a 1-minute quick quiz, and it'll tell you if it's there, and then a link for how to treat it. But optimizing salt, increasing water, using compression stockings. These are basically, you want to get the ones that are medium pressure, 20 to 30 millimeter. Preferably ones that go at least mid-thigh high. So summertime may be a difficult time to start that. Summertime you may want to use the knee highs, so not as effective, but they help a lot. That takes over for the autonomic nervous system and keeps the blood from pooling in your legs, so you're less likely to feel wiped out when you're upright and walking around. But beyond that, that whole energy, you have what's called post-exertional malaise, which is a classic part of fibromyalgia, and that takes treating really the entire SHINE protocol, everything we talked about and more. That orthostatic intolerance is sometimes missed, really easy to treat. The adrenal support we talked about also can be very helpful. And then medications such as Mitadrin, DDAVP. There's a host of things that can help with that.
Great. We also have a question about, could you speak to the problem of mercury and dental fillings?
Yeah, ignore them and leave them alone. I think it's insane for anybody to put a mercury filling in their mouth. That's so medieval and stupid. But once they're in your mouth, most people find that you're going to get more mercury toxicity from trying to take them out. Basically, in people who I see try to take them out of their mouth, about 40% feel worse when they've done it, 40% a little better, and 20% no difference. So at the end of the day, my experience is it's best just to leave them alone and go with other things for detoxification. But anybody who's getting a filling put in and doctor wants to put in mercury, the dentist run. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question about SAMe. Is SAMe good for adrenal fatigue, and does it help with brain fog? And is 400 milligrams too high a dose?
Well, the nice thing about some of the vitamin powders is that if you have the trimethylglycine, you've got the folic acid, the B vitamins, your body's going to be making the SAMe. So that's a simpler way to do it. Not so much the adrenal help, but methylation, energy, cognitive function, yes, can be helped with it. Because I usually give supplements where your body will make it on its own, and SAMe is pretty fragile, so it works better, I think, taking it on your own than having one in a pill. to have your body make it on its own. So that's the approach that I do. But the answer is yes, it can be helpful for those. 200, 400 milligrams is a reasonable dose.
Okay. What do you do if your cortisol levels are too high?
Okay. If the cortisol levels are too high, then you need to look at whether it's high because your body is under a lot of stress. If somebody has pneumonia, instead of a normal cortisol level of 18, they're going to be at 50. And it's healthy and supposed to be that way. But it may be high for unhealthy reasons. So if it's high for unhealthy reasons, and the simplest way to tell is I give some adrenal support or some hydrocortisone and see if they feel better or worse. If they feel worse, then no, it's too high. So it's kind of a, not rocket science with it. But the way, if it is high, then what I'll give is a combination of ashwagandha and phosphatidylserine, with the phosphatidylserine being the main thing. In the morning, it can be helpful to lower it if it's too high, because it's two separate things. If the cortisol is too high in the morning versus too high at night. If it's too high at night, because often people who are low during the day are too high at night. So they have, if their mind is wide awake at bedtime, they're exhausted all day, and then it's bedtime and their mind's wide awake and racing, then their cortisol is too high at night. And then the ashwagandha phosphatidylserine, and we have articles on that on our website. We have actually hundreds of articles on all these different things. Can be very helpful for that. In the morning, if it's too high during the day, then again, the phosphatidylserine and ashwagandha, we're trying to see if it helps.
All right. Here's a person who has a problem of it. Even after a good night's sleep, they get up at 5:30 in the morning, and then by 9 a.m. they've got a huge energy dip. Do you have any solutions to this?
Well, number one, drink some water. Number two, drink a cup of coffee. Coffee is actually healthy. 1 or 2 cups a day. People live longer. They have a host of health benefits. Coffee, tea, chocolate, these are all health foods. They've been maligned. Now, you don't want to drink a pot a day, but it's reasonable to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. But the first thing I would do is try a glass of water. They may simply be dehydrated. And then the other things to look at would be adrenal, other things along those lines. But make sure they have the multivitamin as well. Get some of the basics we talked about today in place.
Mm-hmm. Would it be helpful to have, if they have a carbohydrate breakfast, to think about adding a little protein?
Very good, Lexi. And there you go, because usually I'm going to have a whole grain granola that's low sugar in the morning. Costco has an excellent one called Ancient Grains that I like. And that's going to give kind of more of an energy burst in the morning, good way to start the day. But when I'm on the lecture circuit and I need more sustained energy, I'm going to have a high protein breakfast. So, Lexi, very good. And that was the answer I should have given, this one you gave.
Well, it's actually not Lexi, it's Cheryl, but we'll give Lexi credit for that one. What about diet soda? Is diet soda okay?
I think it's a lot better than regular soda. Regular soda is going to have 3/4 of a teaspoon of sugar per ounce. So if you're getting one of those 48-ounce Big Burp sodas, that's 36 spoons of sugar you're pouring down your throat. Yikes. It's utterly insane. Now, again, will you lose weight with diet sodas versus regular? No. And are the artificial sweeteners, God's gift to humankind for health? No. But they're a lot healthier than the regular sodas. And you have ones such as Zevia, which are stevia sweetened. What I find with the artificial sweeteners and with the stevia is that I think some people can't handle NutraSweet. And if people are having unexplained problems, it's reasonable to leave out all the NutraSweet for 10 days to see if it goes away. But in most people, that's not the main source of it. And their body is okay with it in moderation. So what I'll do is have people change up different times and different kinds of sweeteners. And because, again, you want to be able to enjoy your life. So, if I'm at the movie, you're going to see me with a Diet Coke and a big bag of popcorn.
All right. Here's a person who has an unusual physical situation. She said she was poisoned in utero by photographic chemicals. So maybe the mother was working with photographic chemicals. And she now has ME, CFS, and fibro and has had it since childhood. She's 63 years old and recently had a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage, and maybe you'll understand this, in PCOM artery and tertians. Anyway, she wants to know if she needs IV vitamin C.
You need a lot more than that. In terms of the chemical exposure during in utero, it helps to realize that there is not a single atom left in your body that was there when you were in utero. It's all exchanged multiple times. So a lot of those chemicals, that's long gone. And I wouldn't even concern myself with back then. That was and it's done. What I would look at is what you can do from where you are. So if you're looking at the immune dysfunction, that and the ME and the chemical sensitivity, you want to look at the NAET for helping rebalance your immune system. It's kind of like hitting the reset button on your immune system, so it starts to react normally to healthy things. But the thing with the subarachnoid hemorrhage is that you'll find that in about 45% of cases, the studies show that people will develop the pituitary dysfunction after both traumatic brain injuries and subarachnoid hemorrhage, and that the doctors miss it the vast majority of the time. And that means that you need to optimize the hormones even despite normal blood tests. So you want to optimize thyroid, especially adrenal, even looking at the reproductive, even being in your 60s. That can be very helpful for other things. So I wouldn't look back at the things from way back when, 60-some years ago. That's rear view mirror and around the bend. I would look at where you are now, address the subarachnoid hemorrhage, look at the CFS-ME, treat those things, and get your life back.
Good answer. We have a question about eating turmeric versus taking a curcumin supplement. Thoughts?
Oh, okay. So let me give you some simple numbers to start with, and then we can lead back into the question if there's more. If you have turmeric, usually maybe 2% of that turmeric is curcumin, maybe 2% on a really good day, which means for every capsule of curcumin, you have to take 50 capsules of turmeric. Now, say you get a capsule of pure curcumin. The absorption on that is dismal unless you add in the turmerone, the essential oil from the turmeric plant, back in. Then you increase the absorption 693%, or about 7-fold. So suddenly, if you get one of these that are properly made, one of the curcumin capsules replaces 350 turmerics. So let me just start with the simple math. What's left to that question?
Oh, just thoughts of the turmeric versus the curcumin.
Well, you can't get enough turmeric to get a significant healthful dose unless you're eating Indian food all day.
All right. Here's a person who has fibromyalgia with IBS. She has no problem falling asleep, but her sleep quality is really poor. She was diagnosed with delta intrusions, which means that her deep sleep cycles are constantly disturbed, and then she has problems waking up and she is always tired. Do you have any ideas for how best to treat this?
A lot. First of all, the poor delta sleep, the decreased M3 sleep, which is theta delta sleep, the alpha wave intrusions into deep sleep, all of these things are simply symptoms of the fibromyalgia. We talked about the hypothalamic circuit breaker being off, and that circuit controls sleep, so people have trouble falling into sleep and staying in deep sleep. You also need to look for things like sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, upper airway resistance syndrome, which we have nasal congestion at night. And the books talk about all of these things. The energy analysis program also screens for these things. And then you want to go ahead and give, because the problem, the smoke from the fire is what you're describing, but it doesn't really address the fire itself. And you want to treat the sleep issues to go ahead and optimize the sleep function and optimize hypothalamic function, then the sleep can resolve. But chasing the smoke from the fire isn't what you want to be doing.
Here's a person who's asking the question. They have energy for about 4 hours a day, and then they crash. This person says that they could sleep for days on end. Is this chronic fatigue, and what should they do?
Well, do they have trouble sleeping? First of all, looking at the adrenal issues and hydration are good starting points. But if they're able to sleep 10 hours, 12 hours a night, and they have non-restorative, non-restful sleep, and they're sleepy during the day. Especially, here's a key question. Do you fall asleep easily during the day, like behind the wheel or at the TV set? If so, you want to look for things like narcolepsy or sleep apnea. And both of those are discussed on the Vitality 101 site or in the Cures A to Z app. And then, so you want to screen for some of the basic things first. You want to look for the orthostatic intolerance things we talked about. You tend to have low blood pressure. Sleep apnea, you tend to see high blood pressure, but if you tend to have low blood pressure when you're standing, then after 4 hours of being upright, you may basically be having the blood, your brain may be blood starved and your muscles may be blood starved and you crash. So there's not a single magic bullet answer. It really takes a more thorough assessment, but those are some of the key things to look at initially.
We've had many questions about product specific, and they're still coming in, and I appreciate that all of you would like to have Dr. Teitelbaum's recommendations. But again, as I said, on today's webinar, we're not going to be talking about specific brands. We'll talk about ingredients. However, Dr. Teitelbaum, what was the address that they can contact you if they have more specific questions? Did you share an address earlier?
Yes, there's the Facebook page, Facebook, .com/, I think it's Dr. Teitelbaum. But also my email address is fatigue, F-A-T-I-G-U-E, doc, D-O-C, @gmail.com.
So fatiguedoc@gmail.com. So folks,
Yes.
if you got a pencil quick, write that down, fatiguedoc@gmail.com. If you have more specific questions, that is the way to get in touch with Dr. Teitelbaum. There's also questions about how to get products in the UK, et cetera. So you might be able to refer those folks on to people that could help them with that, correct?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Also, from our website, you do ship to the UK.
All right. Excellent. Here, let's see. This is a question about iodine. This person says she's been told that she has an allergy to iodine because she cannot eat certain seafood. What's your opinion of taking an iodine supplement?
If she has anaphylaxis in seafood, then I would be very cautious with it. It's not necessarily iodine. Iodine is essential for health, so it's essential for life. But I think just to be on the safe side, I wouldn't take the iodine supplement if that's the issue. In my population, unless they have anaphylaxis where they stop breathing, I will give iodine and a multivitamin. You can't be totally allergic to the iodine. It's usually not allergies to the iodine as much as the things that travel along with it, whether it's the shellfish or the X-ray dyes. But I would err on the side of caution.
One last question, and that is a person has been looking at a product that contains nicotinamide riboside plus pterostilbene that's supposed to increase energy dramatically. Is this something you have heard of? And do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, the NADH by itself can be helpful in about 20% of people, especially those with pure fatigue without fibromyalgia, who have the CFS. It's a bit pricey. It has to be done under the tongue. I wouldn't do any old company's one. There's one company, you can email me and I'll give you the company name, that basically they've done most of the research. Is Professor Berkmeyer's group, and they've researched it. And there are many wannabes that come along with it. And again, I don't have any financials. I don't take money from any of the companies. And even products I design, the royalties, I'll go to charity. So I have no tie with that company. But let's just say I'm skeptical because I'm very picky. And for that one, the NADH is so fragile that unless it's put together properly, it's not where I would go.
All right, excellent. We have so many compliments that have come in, so I want you to know that a lot of positive energy is being sent in your direction with thank you for all of this wonderful information, and we appreciate you staying for so long to answer all of the questions that have come in, and thank you again also for sharing how to contact you should individuals have additional questions. So every time I listen to you speak, Dr. Teitelbaum, I learn something new. Thank you for being on our webinar today.
Always a pleasure, and thank you everybody for coming. You know, why not get a life you love? And if not now, when? So I'd go for it. You know.
Thanks again. Folks, I hope that you will join us again for another Terry Talks Nutrition webinar series presentation. You can also visit us at terrytalksnutrition.com. You can sign up for a free weekly newsletter full of natural health tips. You can also find the recordings of past seminars on that website as well and ask Terry directly your questions. Or you can follow Terry on Twitter for your daily dose of natural medicine and inspirational thoughts. For twitter.com/Terry Lemerond. We are very scrupulous with your email addresses, so should you be interested in signing up for newsletters or to follow us on Twitter, we do not share that, nor will we bombard you with information. You can also find us on the YouTube channel. Just go to Terry Talks Nutrition on youtube.com and you will see a list of past webinars and web-based trainings that you can listen to on demand. And as I said, within about 24 hours, this program will be available on both sites, both on the terrytalksnutrition.com website and also on the youtube.com website. So thank you again, Dr. Teitelbaum, and thank you, everyone. I hope this has been highly beneficial and that you'll join us again in the near future. Until that time, good health to you. Bye-bye.